Hey, how goes it everyone? Hope you're all doing well, and that you had a happy Halloween. And what better way to have sent off the season of scares than with two slashers beating the hell out of each other. That's right, Jason vs. Michael is finally here. So weird to think that this is the episode that came after SpongeBob vs. Aquaman. That's just such a weird juxtaposition, it's so funny. But yes, the biggest horror movie matchup has finally come to death battle after all these years, and even as someone who hasn't engaged with either series before, I was really excited going into this one, and the waiting period even made me interested in checking out both franchises at some point. However, with such a long-awaited legacy match like this, there were some highly lofty expectations attached. The real question is, did they manage to meet those expectations? Well, how about I take a stab at trying to find out? Right off the bat, I love the analyses here. Rather than frame the episode like they normally do, they present the rundowns like a campfire story, which is a really fun and unique way for the episode to stand on its own. Plus, I love the continued intent to play with the formula, even though this isn't to the same extent as something like Macho Man vs. Kool-Aid Man or Excalibur vs. Raiden. They even use the cutaways to lean into the trope of each one of them getting mysteriously picked off one by one, and it's just really neat. On top of that, these rundowns were way funnier than I expected, which is a welcome surprise. The teleportation debate, them dunking on the Curse of Thorn, the way they introduce Uber Jason, the hibachi chef of death line, there's a good number of banger jokes here that got quite a few laughs from me. The sidebars even get in on the comedy, with stuff like referencing the Arsenio Hall interview and Michael going up against Busta Rhymes. On the flip side, they do a great job of making Jason and Michael feel as menacing as they should, especially with those last lines in each rundown. My god, that's some good shit right there. Being totally honest, this is probably my favorite set of rundowns in the entire season, and that speaks volumes given the competition thus far. From start to end, you can tell that they had a blast putting this together and leaning into that spooky Halloween goodness, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it. But now, the big question. Oh boy, what did I think of that fight? Okay, so, elephant out of the room. It's not in live action like what I was hoping, which is a little bit of a shame, but I am a-okay with it being in 3D. It lets them go farther with it. It's not the end of the world. And while we're on this topic, props to Devil Artemis for doing this entire fight solo. Hell, if you count Excalibur versus Raiden, this is the second solo fight he's done this season, which, holy shit, dude. As for the actual content of the fight, the setup is exactly what I expected. One guy hunts down a victim, the other guy steals the kill. Boom, it writes itself. And we even get Michael's iconic POV shot, which is neat. I thought the initial scuffle was nice, and I liked Jason weaponizing the fresh corpse, though apparently the storyboards had him do the same with the sleeping bag he was already dragging around. Oh well, it gets the same point across, doesn't it? And on the topic of wackier forms of weaponry, they bring up all these unorthodox kill methods in the analysis that they don't really do anything with in the fight itself, which is something I don't actually mind all that much in all honesty. Not only am I not sure if they actually had the assets to pull them off, but even if they did, I don't know how they'd be able to do it and have it still feel natural in the fight that we did get, so it doesn't really bug me. What does bug me, though, and more than it probably reasonably should, is Michael pinning Jason to the tree. Not the fact that it happened, it's neat that they worked it in there, but rather because there is a disconnect between the audio and video, and once I noticed it, I couldn't unnotice it, and it frustrates me so goddamn much. I understand that stuff slips through cracks all the time. I totally get it. But this is clear as day. How did no one catch this before release? My god! And the kicker is, this is my biggest issue with the fight. That's right, this minor timing issue that I really shouldn't be this pressed about is my biggest problem with the animation. I'm gonna take that as a good omen. Then we get the introduction of an additional victim, and I gotta say, I'm mixed on this whole sequence. Because, on the one hand, I love the idea of Jason and Michael fighting as they're hunting someone down, and I like what we got in that regard. But on the other hand, it feels really unbalanced. We got plenty of the hunting down, but the Jason and Michael fighting part of this Jason versus Michael animation doesn't even take up a full minute. Now, I feel I should clarify that I'm not necessarily asking for the fight to be longer, just that the elements of the animation were balanced better. And the reason why I feel I should clarify that is because that yes, there was an era in the show's history where Torian was on board and he was pumping out consistent 6 to 7 minute bangers every other episode. But people seem to forget that he had an abysmal work-life balance at the time, and I would rather we not go back to that, especially given the current production schedule. Let me summarize that. I am fine with us getting shorter animations, so long as it means that the people working on them aren't literally killing themselves to get them done. Alright, now that that's off my chest, let's get back into it. All I have left to say on this middle portion is about when Sam here stops to take a breath after running from Michael, for which my comments are twofold. For starters, his expression here is in fact kinda funny, I'll admit. He looks more constipated than he does scared, like my god. And also, how the hell does he keep running at a full sprint after getting a goddamn axe to the back? Like, Jesus H. Christ, this kid is built different. Oh, right, I gotta give my thoughts on the track at some point, but I don't know how to lead into that naturally, so let's just shove it in here. Thank God It's Halloween is pretty alright. The title is goofy in a fun way, and the music itself fits the animation well, but it's not something I'm particularly incensed to go back and listen to on its own. Yep, that covers my thoughts on that. But now we can finally get to the climax in the cemetery after, shock of the century, Sam gets shanked. Jason throwing the axe to the side and embedding it in a nearby rock is pretty neat, as is Michael immediately countering by hitting Jason over the head with a tombstone in order to set up trying to split his face open with the part of the axe still sticking out. But then Jason hears Mommy calling out to her sweet baby boy, telling him to kill Michael and make her proud. I kind of figured we'd have a moment like this in the fight, but I appreciate the added tension of Jason actually being on the back foot, and the fact that it's right by Pamela's grave is a cool touch. Jason breaks out, and the final exchange has some pretty meaty feeling stabs thanks to the timing and sound design, but ultimately Jason gets the final blows with an axe to Michael's head, and then decapitating him with the knife that was stabbed into his own head. That's just cool! And to cap things off, Jason splits Michael's head over a tombstone and wanders back into the woods of Camp Crystal Lake. I've heard some people say that this feels like it goes on for too long, but I honestly don't mind since it adds that feeling of tension that's just perfect for a horror movie ending. One last aside, on my initial viewing, I thought this shot of Jason picking up the axe with Michael's head in it was actually Michael's head floating, and now I've put that image in your head too, you're welcome. And as far as the conclusion is concerned, I thought it was pretty solid. I don't really have a lot to say about the verdict though, they basically just said that they're dead even outside of Jason's survivability, but I like that they continued the bit from the cutaways, and I appreciate the little touch of Michael's head tilt. It's the little things like that that they don't have to do, but they do anyway. It's just fun. Now, I've seen some people make notice of the fact that there weren't really any numbers in this episode, let alone the conclusion, but as someone who's not here for the numbers, I couldn't care less. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode, and I gotta say, it's a shame how hot of a take that is. I've seen a good number of people come out and say that this is one of their least favorites of the season, if not their least favorite. And while that's a perfectly valid opinion to have, and I don't want to take that away from anyone, I just don't see it. Sure, there's things that I wish they could have done, like breaking Jason's mask off, and hell, they don't even do the mutual head tilt, but I'm not gonna begrudge the episode for not doing them. That doesn't mean the episode is perfect by any means, no, it has its hang-ups, like the fact that the animation's focus is so lopsided away from the fight that we're actually here for, and also that stupid fucking disconnect, but that's a me problem. But neither of those are deal breakers, just aspects I would have liked more if they had the chance to go back and fix them up a bit. Also, this is one of those rare occasions where I actually prefer the analysis to the fight, but that's less a mark at the fight's expense, and more just a comment on how good the rundowns were here. At the end of the day, I got my money's worth. It's a fun episode with those good Halloween vibes, and more than anything, that's just what I wanted. Perfect for my favorite holiday. And the next time is Lich King versus, I don't know, some guy. You know, I hear that he's actually the title character of, like, the biggest fantasy series on the planet, but, that's just hearsay. I can't know for sure. Okay, but seriously, Sauron versus Lich King is pretty exciting, honestly. Like, how did we manage to get 2 episodes in a row to bring in entire genres that are way past overdue for this show? Seriously, how have we gone almost 170 episodes on this show and not gotten a high fantasy fight, let alone Middle-earth? And who better to ring it in than with the Lord of the Rings himself? It's just too perfect. Plus, it's just nice to finally see Warcraft getting on the show too. Congrats on that, by the way, Torok. In terms of things that I want out of the episode, nothing in particular. I think it'd be cool if they had an army fight, but if that can't be added for one reason or another, I'll live. I just want the episode to be neat. That is my baseline requirement. But we'll just have to get to that in a couple short weeks now, won't we? Because it's time to start wrapping things up. Thank you as always for sticking around to the end if you're here, and I will see you next time. Stay safe out there, and have a good one.